Great, thank you. Members of the board, today is our special meeting of the Oakville Public Library Board for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. Madam Committee Clerk, do we have any regrets today?
There are no regrets.
There are no regrets. Members of the board, are any declarations of pecuniary or conflicts of interest today? Seeing none, we'll move on. Members of the board, we have one item on our public agenda this morning, and that is the Oakville Public Library response to COVID-19. Tara, do you want to quickly run us through that, please?
For sure. First, I just want to start by saying how proud I am of the OPL staff and how they've been adapting to the current situation. Whether working as part of the work from home learning program or the various initiatives that we've put in place, staff have really embraced the opportunities to be found in this challenging time. And I just wanted to highlight that I think the board should be very proud. Due to the connectedness of this report and the in-camera conversation, I would ask to speak to this report as part of that conversation.
Okay, I just, for the sake of for the public's for the sake of the public portion of this meeting, I would like to explain at least the enactment portions of this agenda item with respect to the decisions made by the executive committee and the direction by the chairman. Do you want me to speak to those, or would you like to speak to those?
I can certainly speak to some of them.
Okay. Well, why don't I just, for the members, for the board, let me explain the rationale behind items 2 and 3. As you may be aware, things moved very quickly when the town started to deal with issues around how the municipality was going to manage the response to COVID-19. And there was a determination at that point in those early days that it was necessary to close town facilities. And as of the very simple fact that most of our libraries are actually in town facilities, and those that aren't explicitly town facilities are owned by the town, so we were faced with the request by the CAO, who was in charge of the emergency operations group, to formally close the libraries. So Steve Bright and I, who are the chair and vice chair, formed the executive committee, and we made the decision to close the branches of the Oakville Public Library for the COVID-19 emergency. And that decision was made subject to the ratification, of course, of the board at its next board meeting. Subsequent to that decision, I was asked by the emergency operations group as well as the mayor of the town of Oakville to consider delegating the authority of the board for the emergency to the CAO of the town for the duration of the emergency, so that she would be able to, as she is with the balance of town operations, able to direct library resources as required to cope with that, the emergency. So those 2 points, point 2 and 3, 2 deals with the closure decision made by the executive committee that needs to be ratified by the board, and 3 deals with the direction by myself as chair to delegate authority from the CEO of the board to the CAO of the town. So that's the purpose of those 2 matters, and I would look for somebody to move this recommendation so that we can formalize that. Oh, actually, I guess in the spirit of the video conferencing, we're not actually asking for movers and seconders, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Need a mover and seconder for item 1.
So we do need a mover and seconder, but I can call the vote by consent, correct? Like we were doing on council?
I have a few questions.
We should all raise our hands? Okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. So can I get a mover and second? First of all, any questions on those 2 clauses of that particular report? Councillor Hazat-Thiel?
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So can you just, for the public record, direct where the public could find board procedural bylaw 4.4, so they're clear of the authority that the executive committee has? I did not see it on the library website, and I just think from a public transparency perspective, where would they find that information?
Madam CEO, can you respond to that, please?
Yeah, I thought it was posted on the website. If it's not, I can have it added to the other board policy section.
Okay, I don't see procedural. It could very well be that I just am not locating it, but I was asked
I'll
by
double
people.
check and ensure it's there. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple additional questions. Can you just confirm that other municipalities have taken the same direction as point 3 in the recommendation?
Madam CEO?
To my knowledge, no.
So Burlington, Mississauga, Milton, all have kept their public library operating independent of their towns in the midst of the emergency?
Yes.
And what feedback have you received from those boards around how they're functioning?
We met with the Halton CEOs this morning. The four of us met. I'm not sure I could answer on behalf of their board. We just kind of shared where we were in terms of our service levels and shared where we thought we'd be moving in the next couple weeks and where our municipalities were.
So can I just ask for clarification? If I understand Toronto is a little unique, we seem to have done something different than others. What did you feel compelled us to do that?
Well, I'll respond to that. First of all, I want to be clear. I don't believe that the CEO said that other libraries, in fact, didn't do this. It was to the best of her knowledge. There are a lot of library systems in Ontario and Canada. I don't know if we've done a survey of all library systems to determine if they've done that. The decision to do that was in spirit and in keeping with all of the other town departments and resources that are under the purview of the municipality to be have all of the resources centrally focused through one common administrator, and that is consistent with every other branch of the municipality. The CAO is essentially in charge of the operation, and she needs to also have that control of our libraries too, and particularly because the town is responsible for all those facilities and ultimately has responsibility for payroll and all those sorts of things. So I felt it was important, and the argument was made very clearly to me, and I felt strongly that it was important to continue the spirit of that with every other department, to align with that, and not to necessarily have the board have to deal with items on a case-by-case basis and allow the CEO to make those decisions as she's doing for the town itself.
So I'm not questioning the importance of the collaboration, and I will support, obviously, the decision that was made. I was purely asking for clarification about why we might have done it differently than others. We had just finished a board governance discussion, which talked about our independence and our fiduciary duty to the library. And I think that could raise some confusion for us. So I just wanted to be clear that A, we have a procedural bylaw. B, if this was different, at least let's understand that we're doing it differently, and the benefits to the community in doing that.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but I want to be clear. We have no information or knowledge that we're the only library system that has done this. So to be 100% clear, it was at the advice of the CEO and the mayor of the town that I took the particular action, and I do believe that it was in keeping with the best interests of not only the library, but all of the resources, the staff, and the people of the town of Oakville to have everything centralized under one point of control. And that's why I made that decision. And again, to be totally clear, I don't know that this is a unique situation. I think Tara indicated that to the best of her knowledge, I think was what her words were, nobody else has done it this way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't been done. I know that that we did have that conversation, ironically, literally days before this action was taken, but I don't believe that we anticipated the rapid escalation that this COVID-19 emergency was going to take us as a town, as a region, as a country, as a planet in such a short period of time. So that's ultimately why that decision was made, so that we can make sure that our resources are lined up with the towns. And certainly the CAO would not have the authority to make broad brush decisions on behalf of the library. That would be the board's purview going forward, but certainly for the duration of the emergency, I think it's important that every resource that we have at our fingertips needs to be available to the town's staff.
So just as a follow-up, and
yeah.
Thank you for that explanation, and again, I'm going to be supportive of all the decisions that have been made.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get a copy of the pandemic response of the library sent to the board? And for future reference, could we get an email from our CEO advising us that this decision has been made and how communication will flow?
The CEO is nodding her head in the affirmative, so I think that, is that correct, Jane? You're happy to do that?
Working closely with Tara, yes.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if you heard that, but Jane had indicated Jane, for everybody's information, Jane Closey is the CEO of the town of Oakville. She's in the audience. She nodded her head and indicated that she would work closely with Tara to provide that information for the board and for, I guess, transparency publicly as well. Anything else
So
on this? Sorry.
I'm prepared to move it if that's what you need.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Janet Haslet-Thiel. Is there a seconder for this motion, please? Paul, are you moving by scratching? Thank you. Paul is seconding that motion. Is there further discussion on the matter? Yes, go ahead, Andrew. Unmute your mic.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to Jeff and Stephen and Tara for your quick action at the beginning. And thank you, Tara, for the updates that you've given us thus far. I am supportive of these items. I recommend that we add a clause in point 3 that the delegation of authority is subject to review at each board meeting, or until the state of emergency declared by the town is over, whichever comes earlier. So in other words, we can renew it continually, but given that as the board we do have ultimate oversight of the library, I feel it's important that we maintain that authority capability.
So I have no issue with adding that as an addendum. Particularly, I think the best approach would be until such a point as the town rescinds a declaration of a state of emergency would probably be the best way to deal with it. Let me just seek guidance from staff resources. Madam CAO, is that a reasonable approach to take in terms of adding a time-limited nature to this particular direction?
Yes, I think it is, and I think it's important to also refer to the town of Oakville state of emergency declared at the
Certainly.
End of that.
Okay. So, Jessica, can you note that to be added as a clause? What would that be, 3? 4? 4. That the direction by the board, I guess we could just add at the bottom of 3, and that such direction be rescinded upon the conclusion of the emergency as declared by the town of Oakville. Is that satisfactory,
Sure.
Andrew?
And also, Mr. Chairperson, that it's subject to review at each board meeting. We don't know, quite frankly, how long the state of emergency will last. There are other matters that may come before us. For example, we've talked about entering a strategic planning process. We may, at some point, need to take a decision, and I feel it's important that we have that option, that we retain the ability to take authority back.
It's my opinion that, and somebody tell me if I'm wrong here, it's my opinion that remains our authority, that we have not, by virtue of the delegation of reporting, because remember, this is simply reporting authority. It's not the delegation of our authorities under the Ontario Libraries Act. So it's essential, until this motion passes, or I guess until I made the direction, Tara reported to the board. So she was ultimately our employee. We directed her as a board. So this resolution simply states that until such a time, or I guess with the amendment, until such time as the emergency is lifted, she will report to the CAO, and the CAO will direct her as opposed to going to the board. That does not, in my opinion, in any way preclude us as a board from conducting our normal board activities, whether it be strategic planning, meeting, or whatever. The only thing we would not be able to do is to actually I guess, direct Tara in the allocation of resources of the library board until such a point. So we could add it if you feel if you want to give that a try, but I do think that your example in particular is already dealt with under our authorities under the Ontario Libraries Act.
Jeff, if you wanted to make it clear, and I don't want to muddy the water with that motion, you could make it a dual reporting, so that for all emergency issues, I report to Jane, and for everything else, I report to the board. That's a potential option, but again, just. I
mean, in light of the load that I know our CAO has, and everybody at the town in particular, I don't think I want to add any ambiguity to this. Of course, I'm at your discretion as a board. I do think that we should leave it the way it is in terms of the CEO reports to Jane, and. But again, I don't believe, if you want the extra wording, I don't think it hurts the resolution, but I do believe that the the resolution as it stands still allows us to conduct ourselves as a library board, set future direction of the library system, et cetera. But I'll leave it at that. Andrew, if you'd like to make that as an amendment, I'd be happy to entertain that.
I'll accept the amendment as for the duration of the state COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the town of Oakville,
Yep.
which I believe was already addressed. But I'll defer to Janet because I believe she has maybe further remarks on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Hasselfield, do you have a question?
So, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
So I guess the conversations sparked me to want to ask. So in the delegation of this authority from a staffing level, is that a decision that would be made by the CAO or by our CEO, or how would that decision be reviewed?
Well, we've been asked to have a conversation about that, which is actually on our agenda today. But I'll have the CAO come forward to comment on that.
I think that with the approval of that resolution, it would allow the CAO to make decisions around the staffing levels itself, reflecting the emergency nature that we're in at this point in time. But I'm glad actually that you had asked about the communication and how that communication flows, because no decisions are going to be arbitrarily made without the full consultation with your CEO, and in a lot of cases with you as a board. So that communication piece is key, but in the end, the decision-making would be by the CAO, myself.
Thank you for clarifying that. Andrew, I thought your additional amendment to that motion makes a lot of sense, so I'm supportive of adding it as you just described without the additions, the one about just until the town says there's no longer a state of emergency.
Right. I just want to add one more thing. Keep in mind that by virtue of our legislation and our bylaws, we'd be able to rescind that at any board meeting anyway. It's not as if we could rescind this motion with a simple mover, seconder, and majority decision at a future board meeting, should that be the case. So I think I think time stamping it with a date of finality around the end of the emergency makes good sense. But in terms of the board's authority, we maintain our authority. We can rescind that authority at any board meeting anyway.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to proceed with the motion as amended.
Thank you. So the motion was moved by Councillor Hasselfield, seconded by Paul. And it's been, I guess, and you're moving it and seconding it with the amended wording around the end of the emergency date? Is that correct, Councillor Hasselfield? Thank you. So I'll call the question now. Raise your hand so we can visually see them on the monitor. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. I believe that concludes the public portion of our meeting. Stephen.
Jeff, can I ask one thing?
You may.
I have as a communications guy, I have an idea. It's very basic. I was going to take a picture of our screen, and I have the library board homepage agenda in front of me, tweet it out, and then Tara, your communications staff. I just want people to know, some people might be joining us online right now, which is great. But taking a picture, tweeting it out, I'm going to put up on my LinkedIn to say, proud to be part of a board that continues to meet. I can send the photo out, but I want to get your permission because obviously I'm about to take the picture if that's the board's thought. And then we can just tell people we're actually meeting, and that's just an additional level of transparency. So, everyone, is that okay? Are people okay with that?
Everybody okay? You may need to do hair or makeup?
I was going to say, Bill, look alive.
At least on my monitor, Stephen, you're Alice. Just so you know, in the Brady Bunch picture here.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. I even shaved for you guys today.
Nice. Okay, go ahead.
I'm wearing my bathing suit underneath.
And just remember, we are in public session right now, so the public are watching us take the selfie.
Hold on. All right. There we go. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else? Okay, before I look for motion to go into closed session, I did want to just make a statement similar to what Tara was saying earlier. I would like to thank every member, and I'm sure that there are those staff members of the Oakville Public Library watching today. I want to thank every member of the Oakville Public Library Board for the yeoman service that you're doing, even when working from home. I've been watching the videos and the creative ways to engage our community and our clients, and I think you're doing a terrific job. I'm proud of each and every one of you, and I look forward to the day when we can once again be together as an Oakville Public Library team. So until then, stay well, stay safe, and thank you for your service. Members of the board, I'm looking for motion to go into closed session, and the reason is for labor relations or employee negotiations. Can somebody give me that motion, please? Susan and Stephen, all in favor? And that's carried. We are going into closed session, and for the sake of the members of the public, we'll be back at the end of our closed session to report out, and we will see you then. Okay, I report, we are resuming our meeting of the Oakville Public Library Board in public session, and I report that we met in a session closed to the public for the purposes of discussing labor relations or employee negotiations. I further report out to the public that during that meeting, we gave direction to staff with respect to the matter before us, and staff will take up that direction accordingly. Members of the board, I think we have concluded our agenda items. I don't see other business on the agenda, but I know as a procedural matter, we do have that in our procedures. Are there any other matters of new business to bring before the board today? Stephen?
Well, it's just a question that may not be answered. Do we have a sense of when our next meeting will be?
I think right now it's call of the chair, so I think that when we get, when Tara, Jane, or anybody in the leadership requires us to meet, or should there be something that we need to start moving on, then I'll call a meeting. Depending on the duration, how long this emergency is lasting, we might want to consider starting to look at some of our regular work, whether it be strategic planning or whatever, and perhaps look at virtual ways to look at that. But I can talk to Tara about that at a later date and see if that's something that piques your interest to do while we're collectively in our home offices waiting this thing out.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, I'll look for motion to adjourn today's meeting. Moved by Bill. Hey, I see I predicted it. And seconded by Andrew. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. I want to echo the comments that Tara made to you, that we appreciate all you board members and your comments, and Vulcan salute back to you, Paul. We really appreciate your engagement and your interest in all aspects of library governance, particularly during this time. So with that, thank you. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you all again soon.
Bye-bye.